Kevin's right.
This is Flint, and you're listening to Bravo Team.
Welcome to Bravo Team, our second G.I. Joe show looking at all the secondary G.I. Joe material. I am your host, Aaron Moss, codenamed Brotherhead. On this show, I'll either be by myself or have other guest hosts joining me, looking at all the G.I. Joe material out there. We'll be covering things like the toys, the Action Force comic, the European Missions comic, the movies, G.I. Joe Renegades, or anything else that is not G.I. Joe, a Real American Hero comic, or the 80s cartoon. Come, join us on our mission to stop Cobra from taking over the world. Yo, Joe.
Hey, everybody on the YouTube land, Brotherhead here, and we're here with, I forget which episode's going to be. It's going to be a Bravo Teams, and we're looking at Special Missions number 4. But as usual, I am not alone. I have wrangled some other fools in to join me. So I was going to bring those fools out. We're going to start here in California with my fellow Joe fan, Kevin Reitzel, a.k.a. Raider Nerd.
What's going on? You know, every time I hear that intro to your Bravo Team, I always think of Die Hard 3 because they play that music, you know, with Jeremy Irons as the bad guy. So, yeah. Good to be back. Looking forward to this.
And also joining us, we have Mr. Brad Abraham.
Mommy and Daddy are making a better version of you. Mommy and...
You're going to play it a second time.
That cracks me up.
I am happy to be here as always. I'm just reading the issue that we're going to be talking about, so don't mind me.
Is that what we're supposed to do? Read them?
You're a step ahead of my next guest because I'm sure he hasn't read it and doesn't plan on reading it. Speaking of which, we have Jarrod Albrick.
That's a prescription for danger.
A.K.A. Death Probe.
All right.
Yeah,
I had to play along there.
Try to mix all the sounds as I bring people in.
I'm proud to announce, Aaron, that I have read today's issue, mainly because I covered it recently over on my podcast. And so I'm getting a 2-for-1 out of it. And listen, guys, I don't encourage piracy, but if you're going to be a pirate, be a sexy river pirate.
Right? Oh, my T-shirt.
That's the best kind.
Yep.
And speaking of sexy river pirates, also joining us from the new upcoming G.I. Joe podcast, the Energon Protocols, we have Charles Cushman, a.k.a. Classified.
Hey.
Charles.
What's up, Charles?
Glad you could join us.
Charles needs his own theme music, Aaron.
I'm working on it.
It's Classified.
I hide in the background. That's my MO.
And real quick, I just want to give a shout out to Charles. Again, I mentioned on the last episode, I think, over on the main show, but Charles sent all of us players over on the G.I. Joe role-playing game a custom set of dice.
Nice. So
again, Charles said it's a custom holder, and he sent us a set of dice.
They look like bullets.
They are bullets. On the bottom side, it's got the number, so you know which number it is. And
yeah, that is officially fancy. That's cool.
I like that. Very nice.
Yeah, he had them custom made.
Looks like something you might see in Toontown.
Yes, Charles, where did you get these again? I've got the link.
From Black Cats Crafts. You can look them up if you're on the Facebook there. Black Cats Crafts does a whole bunch of custom resin work. And I thought, you know what? We really need to have some Cobra-themed dice. So made up a set for the players and then a separate set for the DM so that I could make sure that the curse landed on the right ones. And so I sent those up to them. But yeah, they're fun as heck, except the numbers are a little bit little for me now, so I have to wear the glasses at all times. But fun stuff, and really suited to the game that we're playing because it's really quite fun. Check it out if it comes up soon.
And that hopefully I got my everything situated with my hosting. So hopefully starting here, and again, this is real time. We're a couple days before Thanksgiving, the Sunday before Thanksgiving. If this won't be coming out till January, hopefully in December. But wait a minute, got someone else joining us.
Aaron, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
When are we going to get to the second half of the GI Joe Battle Order? Remember that
Yes.
4-hour spectacular of just getting through the first half of the magazine?
Here's
When are we
about-
going to do the
finished that.
second half?
We finished that weeks ago. Where have you been?
Damn it!
Don't tell Kevin. No. Well, see, originally I was planning on doing those in between the special missions, but somehow I got off, and so I need to do the special missions one after another right now because up here in a couple episodes,
Battle Order.
it's going to line up with GI Joe though, so we have to. But yeah, we're getting back to that soonish. Dave was going to join us, but he didn't have any sort of video or anything, so I didn't let him in. So Dave may be joining us, so we'll see if he comes back in.
Is that the Australian guy?
Our Australian friend, yes. And speaking of which, also joining us from the land down under.
And a couple of tra-la-las. That's
Hey.
off the day away in the video land of Oz.
We have Dave Finn. Hey, Dave.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can
Yeah,
hear
I
you.
can only see half your head though.
Yeah, you may want to move
Yeah,
your
I'm just
camera
sorry.
down.
I'm just struggling with my connection here for some reason. It's not coming through my system properly. But thank
Never
you,
mind.
and sorry I'm late.
That's all right. No, it's
Okay.
all right. Do me a favor. Can you move the camera back up so we can't see it? No, I'm joking.
Oh,
Well, at least he's not Jarrod and didn't pay his bill on his lighting, so at least we can see his face.
how are we all? Yo, Joe, by the way.
You can join us, Dave.
Well played, Jarrod.
Okay, so now we get the show started proper. Oh, wait a minute.
Kevin, what you doing, man? Okay, there. He's back anyway.
Yeah, I like pulling Jarrod out every once in a while. I got to keep him honest. I got to let him know who's in charge because, I don't even know who's in charge. But
Jarrod is. Gotcha, yeah.
there you pretty much. Anyways, we're here to talk about some special missions. Hope all of us is read it. I know I think Brad said he was just now reading it. So, and Kevin or Jarrod read it for his other show. So this is special missions number 4.
Can I mention something about my copy? I wonder if this has ever happened to you guys. Can you zero in on me real quick?
Yes, I sure can.
I forgot that this issue had this, where if you go back to the special missions dispatches in the back here,
Right.
now, if you'll look right here, it looks like your page got folded in there. See that?
Oh, yeah.
Right? But no, what happened was, look at this. Have you ever had this happen to you?
Yeah.
Mine's fine. I've had that happen on other
And
comics.
so I didn't notice that until after I bought it way back in the day that they folded it in just to fit in there. Isn't that weird?
Yes. I have seen that before on other books.
I have seen that on older books from like the 80s and stuff. I
Yeah.
have. Yeah.
In fact, it was probably a Marvel book, but yeah, no, I have seen that before. But yes, we are here to talk about Special Missions. Special Missions was a secondary comic that, again, there's no verified information, but we're assuming they gave it to Larry to kind of appease him because in the main title, he's had to do, a lot of this other weird stuff, Raptor and Crystal Ball and, Serpentor and all this. But so I think they gave him Special Missions just to do a little bit more original type solo stories, again, smaller teams of Joes and something to appease a little more of his military authenticity he likes to bring to the book. So
Going forward on this episode, I want to be known as Sarah Wax Sally. Is that okay?
Sarah Wax Sally. I'll have to make a note of that because I'll
Sexy River
forget.
Pirate.
But yes, we're here to talk about some sexy river pirates and Lifeline. So again, this is Special Missions number 4. This is basically a Lifeline. I call it a Lifeline. Not necessarily. So a little Lifeline spotlight. There we are.
Yeah.
Lifeline was introduced in this issue, and as we find out, he's a bit of a pacifist. The Joes are transporting a Firebat with a black box in it, and they are attacked by everyone's favorite, the Oktober Guard, and they are fighting over who gets this black box. And we'll talk more about the issues we go along. It's relatively simple plot, but there's a lot of intricacies in it. So let's go ahead and get some. Actually, first, let's get the cover. Almost forgot about that. The cover, we have Lifeline hanging upside down, tied up in his parachute from a tree. And below him, we have the Oktober Guard, returning the Oktober Guard, walking below him, looking for somebody. We can assume they're looking for Lifeline. So, Kevin, thoughts? So, again, we'll do the thoughts on the cover, and then we'll rate it on a 1 to 5 Joe Cola as we do it normally. Kevin, thoughts on the cover?
One of them that always stood out for me with the special missions, I love the perspective on it as well. And, I always like it too when, either I like it when you have your G.I. Joe cover that's literal, like there's a scene in the actual comic of it, or if it's like way off, it's not. For example, number 43, it's like that scene's not in there, but you know why it's there, why the Grim Reaper's on that cover. But what's interesting about the book, though, is like the people walking underneath him being stuck isn't the Oktober Guard; it's his own Joe crew, which I thought that was kind of interesting. And I like the fact that we get a nice shot of Lifeline here, and always been a big fan of Oktober Guard as well. It's from a perspective I'm not normally seeing for a cover, and I thought that was very clever, and it stands out. It's one of those that stand out.
Yes, very much so. And Brad, are you done reading? Any thoughts on the cover?
I just finished reading it. The cover, yeah. Great cover. I remember being actually quite excited when I picked this one up years ago off the newsstand and saw that the Oktober Guard was on it, because they really are one of my favorite elements of the Real American Hero comic. We had them in the first issue of Special Missions. Now they're back. And unless I'm remembering incorrectly, we do get a lot of them over this series run. They kind of become the recurring antagonists in this series. Cobra, not as much. So it's kind of a great example of what Special Missions is, which is G.I. Joe without Serpentor and Raptor and Crystal Ball and Big Boa and all the more outlandish Roger Moore era James Bond villainy type stuff. It's more, if you're a fan of the I would say if you're a fan of the first 20 or so issues of the Real American Hero comic, Special Missions kind of continues that. So, but it's a great comic. It's a memorable one, and it does a very good job of hinting what's going to happen inside. So that's what any good cover should do.
And Jarrod, speaking of James Bond, thoughts on the cover?
Well, it's a Zek, no baity, but Zek. So it's great. Kevin's right. Funky angle. It's great tension. It uses cool. I don't know if that's I think it is Zipatone shading for the tree, the dapples of sun leaves on his legs and all that. There's just a lot to like in this one, but mostly the tension. And then going on what Brad said, always have enjoyed the Oktober Guard. If I see them on a cover, I'm going for it. In fact, a top 10 cover for me all time is Stalker and Colonel Brezhnev back to back on what was it, like
number 7?
Yeah, there 7, you go. Yeah, that's so good. Wow. That's one of my favorites all time.
Yeah.
I feel about that cover about the same way that Kevin feels about was it 43 that you dig? Yeah. Just that might be my favorite Joe cover all time.
I think it was a popular cover too, because it was always one that always cost a little bit more than other back issues. It was a popular one.
Yep. And Dave, thoughts on the cover?
Well, firstly, thank you. I've awoken now. I literally woke up 5 minutes before this show.
Yeah, no, it's
like 6 a.m. there, isn't it?
It's even worse. It's 7, but I've had a super busy weekend. I was at a con yesterday, and I've been very tired. Now, great cover. First time I read the issue, and I also like it when a cover can sort of pitch what's going on in the story in its own way, which sometimes you don't see it all these days. Love the cover, love Lifeline. First time I'd ever really read about Lifeline, and love the Oktober Guard as well. So it's a great cover.
And Charles,
as a figure collector, I find this particularly hilarious because based on kind of looking at the detail, it looks like somehow his crotch is out of alignment, and this is one of the figures whose crotches always break. So if you see them on sale, like used, you'll often see his hand kind of covering his crotch because that will, of course, be the broken piece. And they've accurately rendered it here. So you can just know that crotch piece is broken off of him right there. What everyone said, the angle is incredibly dynamic. It's really nice. All the lines drawing in from various different places, draw the eye directly to his face. He's got that standard Marvel, I'm hiding from somebody face that always looks just a little bit terrified, and that something's coming, whether it be Kitty Pryde or, in the X-Men titles, and that you just know he's hiding from someone who's going to take him out. But it also kind of also reinforces for me how absolutely, utterly inappropriate that outfit is for any kind of jungle action. And how incredibly, how did the Oktober Guard in this somehow miss the guy who's in bright red and white hanging from the tree like some kind of strange jungle fruit. So it always has that little element of the bizarre for me, because he is very exposed, and you would think you'd see him from a distance. But I mean, you just can't argue with that kind of drawing and that kind of dynamic suspense building and the terror on his face, and the fact that, you know, one of the main characters is upside down. It always it always makes for a really good cover.
What is your problem? Trying to bring logic into this.
That's my niche. Is the, you know, the trouble bubble can't fly. The, you know, you can't wear red in the you can't wear red in the jungle and not be seen. Yeah, that's my niche. Is this doesn't make any damn sense, but I'm sure there are a lot of other opinions and takes on it, but that happens to be mine.
We'll have no disparaging of the trouble bubble in the show, young man.
Oh, for every raptor, you get one trouble bubble. That's how the scoring works.
Raptors up here, so I won't. Anyways, no, yeah, like you guys have said, this is a great cover. It's very iconic. It's, when I think back to special missions, there's a handful of covers I remember, and this is one of them. And again, they've introduced one of the main characters in special missions. Again, Lifeline, we learned is a bit of a pacifist, which is kind of one of his main character traits, which we'll get into. So again, let's get some numbers on this issue. Kevin, 1 to 5 Yojo Colas. As you know, 1 being it sucks, 3 being average, and 5 is like issue 43 behind you. You want to hang it on your wall. How many Yojo Colas do you give this one?
I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. I like that we're getting also just a highlight on Lifeline. I want to mention too, there's a couple of members of my fellow G.I. Joe Fighters costume group that do really good costume of Lifeline. And what's really cool is when you see someone doing a cosplay of him, it really pops, especially with that red and all the other white accoutrements and stuff like that. And just the overall look and perspective on this, it's definitely, I think it's worth a 4 out of 5 Yojo Colas.
Very nice. And Brad, 1 to 5 Yojo Colas.
I'm going to give this one a 4 also. I know I'm the guy who usually gives out 3s because I'm just a curmudgeonly, it was okay, I guess, guy. But I like this cover for the reasons that Kevin already specified. I like the way it's drawn. I like the perspective from the trees looking down. But I also like that it's got the Oktober Guard on it, and it's got a new Joe, Lifeline, at the forefront. And, you know, we're rolling into a new year or a new wave of G.I. Joe characters, so you're going to see a lot more of the new guys, and it just kind of does what it's supposed to. I think as an iconic cover, it's one of the ones that really does stand out from the special missions line. So I guess that's a 4 out of 5 for me.
Very nice. And Jarrod, your artist person over there.
Yeah, I before I reveal my score to keep you on the edge of your seat, I recently did find a Lifeline at a flea market and purchased him, and he did have a broken crotch. And also, I had the over and under for the word crotch on this episode at 7. So if you had the over, you did well. But anyways, I'm giving this, as I did over on my show, G.I. Joe Chronicles, Long Box Crusade Network. I'm giving this a full 5. This is a top tier for me. If you just said, "Hey, Jarrod, from memory, tell me a few covers from special missions," I could, from memory, really strong ones, I could probably do 5 or 6, and this is one of them. It's just, I love the tension of it. For a non-action cover, the tension is great. You can almost hear, like in an action movie when he's sneaking around and you get that one violin note. Yeah, that's kind of what you can hear here. So full 5 from me. I love it.
Very
Plus
nice.
It's Mike Zach.
Can't go wrong there. And Dave.
Yeah, look, it's very good. I'm going to give it a 4. I could almost be bumped to a 4.5, but it's a solid 4. It's a great cover. And, I'm going to stick with 4.
Because, again, on the G.I. Joe and any headcast shows, we don't mind halvesies. Looking over Jarrod.
Communists. You're all communists.
Yeah, pretty much.
Hey, Jarrod, are you drawing while we're doing this as well? Are you
Not today. I came in actually literally like you woke up 5 minutes before. I got back into the house 5 minutes before we started recording. I was out
pretty much here. Yeah.
And I was
I did have an Oktober Guard question for the panel here, because when I was reading this, I was trying to remember where the Joes are with the Oktober Guard, like the relationship with them, because obviously they met as adversaries in 6 and 7, and then they had to work together against Cobra. I kind of thought they started to patch things up again, but I couldn't remember. Brad, you had mentioned they kind of went they went head to head again. But I thought they were kind of allies. Am I missing that, or does that happen later? I'm trying to remember where we are with the Oktober Guard.
I think this is only since that original issues 6 and 7 two-parter. I think this is only the second or the third. This is the third time we've seen the Oktober Guard in the comic. We saw them reintroduced in annual number 2, that great Michael Golden illustrated one in Afghanistan on the train where they've got the MacGuffin is, and they're being pursued by Cobra, and then the Joes swoop in at the end and snatch up the lost tech. And then they appear in the first issue of Special Missions, the submarine mission, and the freighter in the North Sea or the Baltic Sea, and then this one again. So my take on the Oktober Guard is they're kind of the complication comes in if G.I. Joe and Cobra are actively trying to kill each other. I think in the case of G.I. Joe and the Oktober Guard, they're not deliberately trying to eliminate the other because that could lead to escalation, between the two highly trained special missions forces, between the Soviets and America. So I tend to think of them more as sort of like the chaotic neutral faction.
I just felt like we never got enough of them overall. And I got a buddy of mine in the Finest that does a great horror show cosplay of that guy, and I just wanted more. I wanted their own spinoff,
I'd like to see classified figures of them, frankly. I think they're cool.
Right?
Yeah.
It'd be nice.
They've grown on me big time. I read an issue of the regular comic, and I'm quite a long way down the road with the regular comic, and they were sort of a team up with the Joes, if you know what I mean. But again, it was like team up because they had to, sort of thing.
Right. And speaking of classified, Charles.
Love these guys.
1 to 5 Yojo Colas is what it is.
Let's go with the, just to bother Jarrod, 4.5 in metric.
Metric even.
Lord.
So what I love the cover, but it's competing with so many other really tremendous covers, and I'm not the one to give 6 out of 5. So I got to save my 5s, but it really is. It's very dynamic. It sinks into the brain, and it's part of a real tradition of Marvel comics that all have that kind of that sense of terror and sense of, they're being chased and somebody's just about to come around the corner and save them. And so, that's something I've always liked in Marvel covers. I think it really, sets some expectations running into it. And so, 4.5 in metric. And
again, I'm a stupid American, so I'm going to give a 4.5 in American because
America.
And, that's one reason why I think Devil will never be on this show, because I do give out halfsies. The dark web. Yes, I am. I give it a 4.5 also. It's almost to a 5. Yeah, there are a lot of great covers between both the regular book and special missions. But yeah, as Jarrod said, this is one that, if you ask me to think about covers for special missions, this is probably one of the top 5 or 6, maybe at most, that I think of. So I think the next issue is going to be another one. But these next couple issues are really great. Then that's another story for next couple episodes. So let's get some thoughts on the story itself. Let's go to reverse order this time. Charles, thoughts on this issue?
So you see this story played out again. I believe they play the same one out with Scoop a little bit later on in the main character one. But basically, the new guy comes in. The old guard says, "What an idiot! You're going to get us killed." And then they put him in a fish out of water situation where he's absolutely in no situation to be successful. Right now, they've got the surgeon doing a highly complex extraction of of black boxes from an aircraft, which does not really share a proficiency with medical. In Essence 20, maybe they're both science, but realistically, there is just absolutely no chance that you're going to take a surgeon and have him be able to do a whole bunch of highly technical stuff. Then you make him a paratrooper, which he's not. I mean, clearly based on the way he's dressed, he was not expecting to go out there into combat. I find it really interesting because, again, coming from the figures, they place him as a pacifist and a solid pacifist. Figure comes with a gun. It's not a particularly good gun. He also comes with a gun strapped onto his body, but they did actually get rid of that for, I believe it was Kellogg's release of the figure in order to go with the pacifist thing and to be able to put that in. So it was an interesting characterization. I think that it has lots of really cool airplanes drawn, which is fantastic. It has the Oktober Guard, which is great. But it also really touches on this kind of, there's a theme in a lot of Larry Hama things that he has written that sort of celebrate the people who don't want to go towards violence. And I have a feeling, and I don't have any evidence to back this up, but Larry was on MASH. And so he really had kind of a respect for that surgeon background people. And one of the big things in that was, of course, the representation of pacifists in war. And so, I think it was kind of a bold thing to be able to put a pacifist on the G.I. Joe team because it was definitely something that stuck out. You then find out later that he's actually super combat soldier guy who obviously passed whatever requisite physical needed to be in place for you to be able to survive that. And so that zero to hero thing is always a good story and puts you kind of in a place where you can really start to appreciate the figure more. It just gives it much better characterization. So I'm going to pass that on.
Very nice. And real quick before we continue on, again, as I said, I was at my son's last night. We played D&D, and I stayed the night and had French toast this morning. Hurried home to get home for the show, but I forgot to do some credits on this. So let me do that real quick before we move on. Again, this is Special Missions number 4. Cover date was April of 1987. The on-sale date was actually a day before my birthday, December 23rd, 1986. Cover price was 75 cents. The editor was Bob Harris. The title on this was No Holds Barred. The writer, as normal, Larry Hama. Artist on this book, we had to return of Herb Trimpe. Letterer, Joseph Rosen. Colorist, George Roussos. The cover, as Jarrod previously mentioned, was just by Mike Zeck.
Well, it's a Zeck. No baity, but Zeck.
And this was reprinted in Action Force number 7, Action Force number 8, G.I. Joe Special Missions trade paperback, I have. And it was also, I'm assuming, in Jarrod's Big Book of G.I. Joe. Yep. Number 5, 6.
I don't have them in easy to grab, but I think 6 sounds right. I think it was 6.
I did have a question, too. So Jim Shooter has been the editor-in-chief for as long as I can remember from these early issues of G.I. Joe. And you have Larry Hama as one of the main writers. Did they have, weekly meetings? Do you think they butted head a lot? I mean, he's editor-in-chief, basically, of what Larry's writing, right?
Yeah.
Yes. He is. But in this instance, of course, you have a lot of Hasbro involvement as well. Pure speculation on Jarrod's part, but I hear a lot of Marvel guys from this era not big fans of Jim because Jim was really strict. Make deadlines. That was his biggest thing. Make deadlines. Be on time. He told the line. He was very strict, so a lot of people didn't like him. I don't have any paperwork to back this up, but I've never heard an unkind word about him from Larry. But that, in a sense, makes sense because Larry's a military guy.
Right.
Make deadlines. Be on time. That. So I feel like their relationship was probably better than most, but that is pure speculation.
That's an excellent speculative point, though. It makes sense because if you're a military guy, you believe in deadlines, and if you're on time, you're late.
If I can make a speculation myself, I think there was probably a mutual respect between the two of them. If Larry was a guy who made deadlines and Shooter was a guy who wanted deadlines, I'm sure they got along fine. The other factor may be that at the time, G.I. Joe was a top-selling title for Marvel. So I think Shooter, for all his quirks, I guess we can say, knew well enough to step back and to say, just let them do their thing. Don't get in the way and start micromanaging them. You have other titles, and again, as Jarrod also pointed out, that this was a Hasbro licensed book. So in this case, Shooter was probably just say, okay, I'm just going to step back and. It's running. The ship's running. The machine is running just fine. I'm not going to get in there and start monkeying with the controls.
Very nice, yeah. And again, I'm sure Larry, from what I've seen, it seems to be very professional. So I'm sure also if he does have a problem, I don't think he's going to air it. From everything I've seen from Larry on Facebook and stuff, I don't think he would be airing if he did have a problem. You kind of keep it, he probably shoot her aside if he had a problem.
He's very much one of those old school curmudgeons who I admire the hell out of because they know, unlike a lot of people today who air every grievance on social media, he's the guy who understands the value of criticizing in private and complimenting in public. So
very well said.
I
And
guess another note about him, though, is that why he eventually got canned from Marvel wasn't because the creatives didn't get along with him. It's because he wanted royalties and health insurance for the writers. So, he managed to walk that fine line of literally pissing everyone off in the company. But at the end of it, having a better product, a really popular set of runs, everything like there's, if you look at several of the other companies, they were missing months of comics because simply they didn't hit their deadlines. They didn't get their product out. And it was a wait time to be profitable at Marvel, even when there was, even when there were no movies to hang every single dollar that the company made on it. So, I mean, he was hated by everybody, but he did some really good things for both the industry and for the company. And I mean, how can you say no to that? So, in defense of Jim Shooter,
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, no, it's never had a chance to meet Jim Shooter, but yeah, everything I've heard, yeah, he seems like a hard ass, but as long as you do your job properly, you got no problems. So, Dave, thoughts?
I think that Larry and Jim Shooter stuff's fascinating. I reckon it's a complicated issue with Jim Shooter. I bet you there's so many sides to that story. But Larry, he's just pure gold. He came in on time. Hey, his Wolverine also came in on time, and I was sure buying that for a long time. Now, this issue, I should learn to read the credits because I was thinking, wow, who did this artwork? Great. And can I just say, Wild Bill is looking real good with the green reflective sunglasses. I don't know if that's his normal color for his sunglasses, but I love it. The first thing that struck me about this issue, which I really love in these special missions, is just the cold open. Like, they just open so cold into the story, and I think it's so much fun. And so much happens in one story. We've already kind of covered, like, with the black box, and then they're down. Like, we say it's a simple story, but like so much is happening, like the leeches, the tiger, and then the fight, the battle, Lifeline, the dilemma there. We could all see that dilemma coming a mile off. The second he's a pacifist, I'm like, yeah, and we all know there's going to be a scene coming up where someone's going to say, gun him down. and gee, one of the Joes was it Leatherneck just giving Lifeline a real rough ride, but I would appreciate that would happen in a battle. Love the Oktober Guard. Who's the blonde in the camo? What's her name?
Diana?
Yep.
I would really like a classified of her and the sort of hard-ass guy with the cigarette, or whatever his name is, who broke his arm. That guy. That looks cool. Are they actual figures, man?
Yeah. These are the release from the comic book release of the figures.
Wow.
I just happen to have them literally sitting right next to me, and so.
So you bought them? They sold the comic and the figures together. Is that right?
Yes. So it is one packaged unit that came with a comic, and
they didn't come out during the original run.
Later on.
When was that? Early 2000s, I want to say.
I'm going to say between like 2009 and 2011, something like that.
How much in the US would that have sent you back at the time, like roughly?
That would send you back about $15 to $20, depending on where you bought it.
Nice.
And
nice,
3 very good figures. They were all fairly high quality ones, and they did the whole thing. The only one that's, I think, outstanding was the one that showed up. Wong, I think, showed up in the cartoons, but all of them got made. And so you have kind of all 3 of them. And
that's pretty cool.
These folks.
I'm pretty jealous right now, actually, to be honest.
The Charge and Dragonski, and then of course these guys. The original ones came with Stalker for that very iconic.
Are the rest of the guys on this call going to have to lift their game, or have you all got this? This is pretty impressive.
I don't have that.
Come on, Aaron. Come on, Aaron. You're the head cast. What's happening here?
I only have one of the 3 packs, and I don't know where it's at offhand. It's boxed up, I think. It's signed by Larry, but it's.
There we go. And I want to mention, then we get to just the awesome part of this, where the River Pirates just come in. I did not see this coming. These River Pirates are just crazy, but I love it. And there's the classic battle. I mean, there's just so much to like in this issue. I think it's actually a really, really, really strong issue of G.I. Joe in general, special missions. I know everyone always talks about how great special missions is, and I'm like, wow, if this is any indication, it's a killer title, Love it.
Yeah, like we said, the special missions seemed to be Larry's I guess, special project, we can call it. Kind of, it seems like they gave it to him to, kind of make up for all the other crap he had, in quotes. Because again, I enjoy.
It's still fun. It's not like it's boring. It's like super fun. Like I've got to say, Herb Trimpe art has grown on me so much as we've read some of this stuff. Like he just blows it away. I knew him as a Hulk artist. I believe he did some Hulk at some point in his career.
Yep.
But yeah, he's great on this G.I. Joe stuff. So it's double thumbs up from me.
Very nice. Yep. And Jarrod, do you just want to play? You just want to play your thoughts from the other show you did on?
Yeah, actually,
he just hits play.
Yeah, you can listen to our episode if you want. But no, since there's 6 of us here, I've decided to become a little more targeted and leave some meat on the bone for the others. I'm going to put on my 3-piece suit and tie and become Leatherneck's defense attorney. This is interesting because, this is one of those books I read when I was a kid. And when I read it as a kid, I'm like, oh, Leatherneck's a jerk and Lifeline's the coolest, right? And then I read it as an adult after having been to war. And I was like, no, once the bullets start flying, your teammates start catching shells. Yeah. I'd be the same way. I'd be like, either you're helping fight the enemy or get the hell out of my way. I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to see you. If I get shot, I will let you know. Otherwise, I get his frustration. Could he?
Wasn't that the whole plot of Hacksaw Ridge? And that
I haven't seen that, but I bet it is.
It's based on a real guy.
Yeah, that is true. And
he was
I just haven't seen it. I know it's based on a true story, but. Yeah, I read this, and it's just kind of funny to me when I read it. He's like, he's kind of being a jerk. And I mean, he is, even with my adult eyes, there are a couple of moments where he's over the top, although I think it's a cool line where he says, I'd rather bleed.
Yeah, that was cool.
It's a very Clint Eastwood thing to say, right? There's a couple of times he's over the top, but it's just, to me, it was the most interesting thing about reading this as a kid and as an adult was that change in perspective. Like, as a kid, I was like, he's an absolute jerk. As an adult, I'm like, I get it. I might not say the same things that he said, but I understand him now. And so I found that dynamic just a little bit fascinating. I thought I'd focus on that because, like I said, there's 6 of us, leave plenty for the other guys to talk about.
And again, that was one of the questions I had on my thing was for you, Jarrod, was being a military person, is that attitude sort of a prevalent thing amongst the military? If you're especially a pacifist, not necessarily a medic, because again, you need the medic. But a pacifist so much, would a lot of the military guys give him that much crap in reality?
It's hard to say because it's a pretty specific thing. I don't think it would be like that. The part where I understood Leatherneck the most is where he was like, just reload this for me. He's like, I'm not going to reload it. I was like, give me it. Just put the shell in for the poor guy. He's been shot. He's trying to defend you and him. Just reload.
It would have been funny if Leatherneck just shot him. Just like, you're just useless.
Yeah. Come on. I mean, I get what Larry was doing, and it ends up being a great story and a great lesson. But I just wanted to take a few minutes to be Leatherneck's defense attorney. But Aaron, I don't think, I mean, all my experiences was nothing but love and respect for the medics. But, it's comic book land. You wouldn't send a medic on this mission. Like, what's he doing opening up the Firebat to get the stuff out? That's not, you'd rather have Mainframe, I would think, or, someone of that ilk. But anyway, I've said too much. Let's let Brad talk.
And real quick, before I let Brad talk, because I do want to say Heinz has joined us in the chat. He says, hello, gentlemen.
What up, Heinz?
Join us. And again, anyone else may be watching the chat, feel free to say hi and send your thoughts and let us know what you think about this issue. Brad, what are your thoughts on this issue?
Well, let me start with the parts I like. The Oktober Guard, primarily. I just think they're great foils for the Joes because they're not these stock villains, which would have been very easy to do. You get that Larry treats them with a certain degree of respect, that they may be on the opposite side of the Cold War, but they're soldiers with a job to do, and he respects that. The other thing, obviously, the art. Any Herb Trimpe is great, as far as I'm concerned. And I think he settles in to being pretty much the regular penciler for special missions, for the most part. I think he did most, if not all, the issues in this series run. So if, again, you're a fan of that early issues 1 to 20 of a Real American Hero run, it feels and looks like a natural extension of that. And a couple of you've already zeroed in on the hardware in this. And this is a fun fact I learned from a really great book about Herb Trimpe that Jarrod recommended to me, that Herb was a licensed pilot and an airplane mechanic. He flew airplanes. He spent a lot of time working on airplanes when as a mechanic when the comics jobs just weren't happening. So any issue of this or any comic that he illustrates that features aircraft, the airplanes all look amazing. Like, I'm sure down to the individual rivets in the fuselage. So on the art side, it really stands out. And one quick fun thing to note is that we get Roadblock version 2 in this. He's not in the tank top anymore. He's got some sweet protective gear, maybe some Kevlar to protect him, so he's not running around practically bare-chested the whole time. And I really like the resolution of neither the Joes nor the Guard getting the black boxes, because, sometimes just denying the enemy the victory, even if you lose the prize yourself, is a little sweeter. Nobody wins. They all have to take their ties, they all have to take their toys and go home. My only dislike, and this is very nitpicky, so it's perfectly on brand for me, but I have read this story before. It feels like I read it before, and that's because I did, essentially, in Real American Hero number 58. If we remember Dusty and Mainframe and Rashid, the little twerp calling Mainframe not a real soldier because he works on computers. So here we kind of have the same thing, only now it's Leatherneck and Lifeline being at each other, and it feels a little clunky, but at the same time, I do think there's a reason for it, and I know that Larry and the editors of the book, they got a lot of fan mail and a lot of letters sent into the book, and I'm wondering if there wasn't a bit of it was focused on the bang bang shoot 'em up aspect of soldiering as a good thing, and it kind of feels like Larry had this bee in his bonnet for a while about it and wanted to really drive home the point to the book's readers that soldiering isn't just the active combat part, that you can have a Leatherneck and a Lifeline and see past these respective ideologies and kind of come to an agreement. Same thing with the Dusty Mainframe Rashid story, and when you think of it that way, you do see this a lot, the G.I. Joe comic. Stalker, in particular, feels a lot like Larry's Avatar. Way back in issue 39, I remember he reprimands Ripcord for going off on Dr. Burkhardt, and he sort of emphasizes that we're soldiers. We may not agree with a person's ideology, but it's not our job. It's our job is to follow our orders. So it's kind of fits into that aspect of it. I mean, it just sort of seems like because those two issues kind of came out really close to each other too, it's sort of like he was wanted to continue the ideas a little further into special missions outside of the mainline book if people had missed that one. But
and actually, real quick, just to interrupt you, this issue actually came out the month before the Dusty story.
Okay, yeah, that kind of.
This came out the same month as issue 57, and then the Dusty story was 58. So yeah.
But on a whole, it's a really solid issue. And I have one last thing to say, and this is more of a question for Kevin about Sarawak Solly. Hot?
Yeah, pretty much. I was going to wait to answer that, but yeah, there's something weird and Amazonian about her that I find highly attractive. I love me some tall chicks, so yeah.
She's going to tear you apart, boys. She's going to tear you apart, but enjoy it.
How does she keep that perm going in the middle of a rainforest?
That's not what I'm caring about.
Pure 80s hair going on there.
I'm curious how she's keeping that tube top up, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I tell you what, check out the person on the back with the huge gun. They're not messing around, these pirates. It's quite an offensive boat, or I guess you call it. They're really crammed in there, and they're going nuts.
And they're all sexy, every one of them.
Everyone's just come
human
on, war.
Well, they are sexy river pirates, so
The G.I. Joes should have offered them a contract to be sort of agents, because they're just so nuts. I love it.
It's the best aspect of this book.
All those people up there who, G.I. Joe Special Missions, it's all about realism. This is the real realistic book. Flash to the Sea Pirates.
I know. That's what I was about to say. You have this real militaristic issue, tactics and all this, and then all of a sudden, sexy river pirates.
Yeah, I love it. It's great. I love it. It just shows you that Larry is good fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As a writer, he's fun times.
You can't go wrong with sexy river pirates.
No.
My philosophy.
No, that's going to be our new band name, by the way.
There you go. So speaking of sexy river pirates, Kevin, other thoughts on this? Track there, but
one of the things that, and I'm glad that you brought up Leatherneck there, Jarrod. Obviously I know why he's feeling the way he's doing, but I like Leatherneck personally, the way that he looks. There's My first G.I. Joe figure that I ever bought from that original 82 line was Grunt. And the reason why I bought Grunt is because he looked like a soldier. He looked like a normal soldier. And I was drawn to that. So when you get guys that kind of look, without the less costumey parts, and I think Snake Eyes was my second figure that I got. But I really like Leatherneck's look. I like the hat that he wears. He's got a specific style hat. I don't know what type of military hat that is. Jarrod, do you know what that is?
I think he wears the typical Marine Corps cap. There's always had that little special shape. Yeah, it's the typical Marine Corps cap of that era. They always had a slightly different shape than the other branch of services.
And I like the way he looked. Everything that he had seemed, accessible and something that he could use. I loved his rifle with a grenade launcher on it. I know the weapon in the toy it was like a gray color and it had a certain look to it. And I got to give a shout out to my friend Stephen Riggin, the finest. He did a Leatherneck and he did a, what do you call it? A print. What do you call it when you print something out?
Printing.
Yeah, thank you. He did a 3D print of the exact style of that gun as the toy, and it looked phenomenal. And I liked his character in this. Yes, he came across a little jerky, but whatever. I could see his frustration with Lifeline as well. I also like to shout out to Stand By Me and the Leeches. I thought that was a good scene. I was wondering why there was a couple scenes where even without a broken arm, while some of the Russian guys were shooting a machine gun with one arm. I noticed that several times. But I do have a question. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine here. Okay, so I get when you are showcasing automatic weapon fire or gunfire in comics. I get the rat-a-tat-a-tat-tat, okay? I get the pew-pew-pew and stuff like that. I've never understood and I get the brap, the pow-pow, but I've never got the punch-punch-punch. Why is that a sound effect that you have to read for automatic fire? Punch, punch, punch. Help me out here, guys.
I took that one as the grenade launcher, but that's more of a thump or a boop. But
usually you get the thump, 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 and I get that as well. But punch, 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 I've seen an automatic weapon fire as well.
I get nothing. Sexy River Pirates, that's my answer.
Yes. Sexy River Pirates, I'm trying to figure out how that one large machine gun is able to stay atop float on that very rickety looking
made from rattan.
Yeah,
it looks like the old ride, the pirate ride at Disneyland that went back and forth.
It does, man. Yes, I agree.
But yes, Sarawak Sally, hot. Just gonna say it. Yeah, and you're giving me the hair metal hair. I love that as well with the headband and stuff. And she's also got a Mauser as a pistol too. I love that old German Mauser that she has as well. And boy, is she tall. Of course, we get a little Aikido action too. I like that. That Lifeline knows and puts Horror Show down on the count, which I thought was great. That's the best thing about these special missions is they're contained, they're one shots, and they give a lot of certain characters to shine. And the fact that you had the Oktober Guard in this is a big plus for me.
Very nice. Yeah, good thoughts there, Kevin. And I've got a few thoughts on here, some following up what you guys have said. Yeah, as far as special missions, Herb did every issue except for two of them. 20, 22, and 27, I think it was. But yeah, he was a busy man at this time because he was doing special missions. He was doing the, G.I. Joe and the Transformers. So plus he was doing a few other books here and he did the draft and a few other books here and here. But mostly this time he was working mainly on the special missions. And after this, he did some Thor, Iron Man. So yeah, he was a busy man. As far as Lifeline, I always thought it was odd that his figure came with a gun. And even though his packaging and the story specifies that he is a pacifist, it comes with guns. Yeah, it was a little odd for that. Somewhere someone wasn't talking to someone else. But yeah, I did like the cold opening, as someone else mentioned in here. The fact that, and I love that when that happens, it seems like there's another story we haven't been told. And this is the continuation or the finishing part of it. It lets you know that this is you've got the main events going on. You got these other special missions going on. There's also other things happening that we're not privy to.
Yep.
And I like that. Yeah, we're getting the tail end of something else that's going on. I like Lifeline being a pacifist. But yeah, even though he's a pacifist, he does know enough Aikido or whatever it was to be able to defend himself, and he can still put a mother down. So,
I was called Aikido the Steven Seagal kung fu that he always used.
And it was very Steven Seagal, like just the boom, boom, like low effort, like maximum result kind of style fighting.
Just less jerky.
Yeah, well, anything is less jerky than Steven Seagal,
The pure comedy that comes out of that, though, and on I think it's page 20, where you just see like Lifeline bent over as in an L and
yes,
straight up like a torpedo horse show, like hitting hitting one of those masts so hard that he breaks it with his head and doesn't die. Like that is hardcore Aikido. I don't know if I've ever seen a throw in anything where you could just pitch a 300-pound man at a wall and break the thing.
That is good comic booking right there.
It also attests to how hard Horseshow's head is. But
he's not wearing the helmet.
Yeah, he doesn't need a helmet. He is a helmet. Again, I know here asking Jarrod about pacifist. We already talked about that. And I do like, as you guys have mentioned, Oktober Guard versus G.I. Joe. Yeah, Oktober Guard, they've always kind of had an enemy type relationship with G.I. Joe, but also it's kind of like a respected enemy type thing. Kind of was talked about, they kind of respect each other, even though, I'm sure if it wasn't for the fact that they're in conflict and trying to get the same goals, they probably wouldn't mind having a beer with each other. But, it's just they're both working for the opposite team, as you will. Yep. And so they're going to come in conflict. But I do like that Larry, when he writes the Oktober Guard, yes, they're the bad guys, but they're not the bad guys. Like I said, they're honorable people working towards their own goal, which happens to intersect with G.I. Joes, and it brings them to conflict. But they're not Cobra. They're not.
Yeah.
You're straight out. Yeah. And this came out in the 80s, where Russia was the bad. Yeah, Russia was the enemy, the bad guy. All Russians are terrible people. But Larry didn't take that take with the Oktober Guard there,
And he easily could have in this kind of title. Like I recall the flavor of the times was honestly that Russia were the bad guys. It wasn't until like the breakup of the Soviet Union that we were like, oh, actually, they're humans too. Oh, okay, we forgot. It just goes to show that Larry's a bit of an independent thinker, and I think they're antagonists, but there's a bit of respect there, and yet they're still the antagonists.
It's a very military mindset. Most people in the military in the 80s, when it was commies are evil and all that's still very much respected.
Yeah,
right.
Because the minute you don't respect them as a war fighting machine, you're screwed. It's very in vogue right now. The term Nazi gets thrown around a little too much for my taste, but it's one of those things where you can't go on a podcast like I'm about to say and be like, as a soldier looking at another soldier, I respect them as a fighting force. Yeah, but I'm probably going to get canceled now for saying that. But if as a fighting force, they're incredible.
I agree.
So like it's a very military to military professionalism thing going on. And that's really what Dave was hitting at.
No, it is what I'm saying, because it was more the media and you know what I mean that I'm talking about, the patrol, as opposed to the actual soldiers. Yeah,
right.
The soldiers out there, I'm sure. And again, Larry, Jarrod could speak more to that than I can. But the soldiers, as kind of Jarrod was saying, that they respect each other. They realize that they're not facing against bad guys per se. It's the bad guys would be the leaders on either side.
Yeah. I mean,
four guys out to fight one another.
It's the whole classic of it just really depends on where you're born. If you're a soldier, it depends on where you're born.
Yes.
If given the circumstance, I'd probably be that other guy on the other.
And think about this. This is a weird thought, but imagine if this comic was, instead of G.I. Joe, Oktober Guard. Do you understand? Do you know what I mean?
That's a great point.
They were the main characters. Yes. You could spin it all around. And
it's a great idea. Let's get an Oktober Guard series done from Skybound today.
At least a mini series, that would be fantastic. Yeah, someone get on the horn of Skybound and let's get this. Let's get this rolling. Come on, Jarrod.
And you could even use the stories that we have, just like Dave said, tell it from their point of view.
Yes,
it'd be awesome.
Cool. Jarrod, you're closer to the profession than most of us. I think you get on the horn.
I'm on it. I got it.
I want this done by next week. I mean,
All right, I'm gonna make a fake phone call right now.
Place a call to Larry. Place a call to Larry tonight. Larry, we've got one more job for you.
But yeah, no, I do like the way that Larry writes the Oktober Guard as they're the bad guys, but that's only because they're facing off against GI Joe. They're still respectable. They're still honorable people. They're not jerks.
Yeah, Ragnar says it in the issue, and he's like, man, we got these guys are wounded. You still want to chase these black boxes? He's like, you think Joe's going to stop chasing black boxes?
Yeah.
No, man. If they're rolling, we're rolling.
Yes.
Oh, you want a painkiller for that arm? No. Ragnar's a badass, man. I love him.
Yeah, no. This is like we said, this is a fantastic series, and this is another example why. And again, this is one not only cover, but also one of the storylines that if I think about special missions. I say this and the next couple are ones that I really think about when I think about special missions. So it's fantastic. Well, I think we've covered everybody on this. So any other thoughts? Kevin, any other thoughts we may have missed?
I like getting back in these special missions. I haven't revisited these since, probably back in the 80s and 90s. So they're kind of new to me.
Yes.
But the thing that is, of course, the pictures on the cover. Because whenever you're thumbing through some back issues, whether at a local comic book shop or a convention, these always pop up. And, I always like to kind of comment on, the ads. There's some fun ads in these as well that take me back, with the model building from MPC. You got that as well there. And then you got free the Captain Mystery, which is kind of like a little mini Spider-Man comic. And I always love looking at the prizes and the caches on these things here as well. And I didn't really go through it, but there was also, like I mentioned earlier, is the special dispatches. I haven't gone through any of that yet, but those are going to be fun to revisit as well. So yeah. And by the way, Karate Martial Arts catalog featuring Chuck Norris with a free autograph photo. Come on. How cool is that right there?
I was just looking at that myself. And I like that it's right next in the book to the page where Lifeline is
doing his Aikido moves. Yes. And cool. I just want to mention real quick, I know this is off topic, but I had pre-ordered this thing here. This is the Compendium G.I. Joe #1 Compendium.
Right on.
And when I ordered this, I didn't realize, how big or thick it was going to be. Because all I got was this picture. My God, this thing is thick. Look at this thing. Jeez. And it goes only through issue 50 right there. Look at this thing.
Enormous.
And for being so thick, it's rather light.
Yeah, but it's like phone book thick. I mean, come on, look at that.
That's a nice cover too. But that is a thick book, man. You could,
look, and you could, of course,
protect your house from burglars with that thing.
Yeah, where was this 5 years ago when we started podcasting?
Really? Yeah, I bought that.
Imagine at night, it's like just doing some light reading, and it's just
It's got that nice printed comic smell though, so that's kind of cool.
Yes, I wasn't going to get that because again, I've got most of the issues in single issues. I've got some of the early trade paperbacks.
Well, I hope they release the second one before we go through all the issues because I'd like to refer to it.
I thought you were going to say before I die. I swear to God, I thought you.
That would be nice too.
And real quick from special dispatches right now, again, as we've talked about, special missions is bi-monthly. One of the letters they're asking about that, Jeffrey Miller from Harvey, Louisiana. I guess he asked about it becoming monthly. He said, no, sorry, there are no plans at present to make special missions monthly, which we know eventually down the road that does change, but I did want to bring that out.
I guess there's only so much Larry could do, I mean, it's probably...
Yes. Well, you mentioned it earlier too, Aaron. I bet Herb was also... He's working on a few books.
Yeah, good point. Very good point. Very good point.
So, I didn't look at what Larry was doing at this time, but I remember, like Dave was saying, I know he's doing Wolverine. He was doing, but real quick, just to look on, all right, now it looks like Larry was just doing mainly the G.I. Joe and Special Missions book. Every once in a while, there's a Marvel graphic novel that came out.
He was an editor on Conan for a while, but he may well have stopped being an editor on Conan by this time. But he was editor on Conan for a while in the 80s too.
He was
also editing the NAM. He was editing
I was just going to say that. The NAM. He was editing that,
Great book.
At this point, he was mainly just working on the G.I. Joe books. And then every so often he worked on something called Wolfpack, which I want to say.
That's one of his own. It's like his own thing, I think, but it's with Marvel.
Yeah, like it came out as a graphic novel, creation. And then it came out with his own series. Yeah, I remember Wolfpack was a 12-issue limited series. Yeah, I remember Wolfpack. But yeah, this was in between a lot of the other stuff he was doing, but he still fit a few things here and there.
Busy guy.
Yeah,
I tell you what, like something that really struck me this issue was just how good that artwork was. You know, like,
oh, yeah.
and the colorization too, just brilliant. I was just like, man, this is Herb Trimpe passed away?
Yeah,
yes,
he has. So that means I can't get him on Signal. What a shame.
Not unless you watch a Ouija board and do a seance.
Dude, the Ouija board's been out for Garden of Fox. Don't worry, and we're getting some communication back from the dark depths. So who knows?
Looks like he passed away April the 13th of 2015.
Cashed out.
R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P. Rest in peace, Herb.
Yeah, he was a great artist. He did a fantastic, as we talk about, especially on Special Missions right now, and the older episodes of the G.I. Joe Real American Hero book. He did a fantastic job. Yeah, he was
knew how to draw a river pirate.
Yes. Not only a river pirate, sexy river pirate.
Sexy river pirate in a sexy pirate ship, you know?
Yeah, apparently he was an ordained deacon in the Episcopal, whatever, Dionysus of New York.
And did you say he was an airplane mechanic? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Did someone say that?
Yep, I did.
Yep. He's a busy guy.
I'm going to be Jarrod's sexy translator because he won't say it. So I'm just going to say, river pirate, he hit that 3 ways from Wednesday. So I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah. Very nice. yes, very nice. Yes. Yeah. I can't blame them. They may regret it later on, but I might have with a knife in your back, but yeah, it'd be worth it. I didn't even know.
Yeah. Could be. She's a feisty one.
Brad, before one of us gets in trouble, any other thoughts on this issue we haven't talked about?
No, it is a fun issue. I really enjoy going through the special missions ones. Not that I don't enjoy a Real American Hero, but I feel like I've read through the Real American Hero Marvel era quite frequently and quite repeatedly, so there's no real surprises in it. So in the case of special missions, going through each of these, I wait for the call. I wait like Batman by the bat phone. It's Brad, Brad by the Brad phone, or the email from Aaron saying, okay, we're doing special missions number 4, and I have to go get the box that's got it in. I got to pull it out, and I haven't probably looked at it in about 35 years anyway. So it's a real trip just to go through them and everything about it, from the issue itself to all the fun ads. And while you guys were talking, I was just looking at some of them, and there's on page 17, I guess, opposite the sexy river pirates arriving, there's an ad for New England Comics, which is still a presence here in Massachusetts. And I actually had to look up to see, because I've been to the one in Quincy, Massachusetts, and the one in Quincy, Massachusetts that they advertised in this issue that came out almost 40 years ago, it is still there. It's just a little down the street from where the original location was. So it's good to see that some of these comic shops are still around. A lot of them aren't. I do Google them occasionally, and they're gone. They're closed. They closed. But some of them are still around. So that's it's always a fun thing to see.
And speaking of sexy river pirates, Jarrod,
yes.
Anything else you want to talk about, or more about the sexy river pirates?
I just want to make sure that we don't overlook something here. I mean, we have sexy river pirates. We've gone, and when I say we, I mean me and Dave, have gone on and on about Baroness, right? And then of course there's Scarlet and all that. Let's not sleep. I don't know if I'll use that phrase, sleep on. Let's not ignore Dana from the Oktober Guard. She's a bit of all right. I like Dana a lot.
I like how you let out your sexiness there a little bit by saying, let's not sleep.
So I was going to say sleep on, but yeah, had to reel that in because I knew it would get out of hand. But anyways, aside from the fact that it's another sexy Joe character that nobody talks about very often, I do legit love the Oktober Guard. And I like Dana, who, thanks to the fact that we covered the whole Devil's Due original run over on our podcast, she actually joins the Joe team in that series. So there's more to come. There's more to come from Dana, especially if you get into that Devil's Due stuff. So just want to throw that out there in my second hitters round.
And we may not be covering that here, maybe in the far future once I get into everything else. Maybe we may talk about that at some point. But yeah, if you want to hear more about that, check out Jarrod's show.
G.I. Joe Chronicles on the Long Glass Crusade while Aaron's dying over there.
Aaron's just literally dying. This may be the last episode with Aaron. He could possibly pass away. We'll have to vamp. while the great man recovers.
So you have to maybe change over to that other podcast because this one may be ending very prematurely.
Join me over on the Long Box Crusade for Chronicles.
He's got his mask off and he's struggling.
thinking about Sexy River Pirates and Diane.
Wow.
And get kicked up and
got the vapors.
We're going to have to bring Lifeline in there for a second and get Lifeline to work you over.
There you go.
Junkyard wants to say hi.
Yeah.
Junkyard, the dog. Look at him. He's like, "What love, Daddy?"
Junkyards. What a good doggy.
And Dave, thoughts about this issue?
No, overall, thumbs up. And I just want to say, Oktober Guard. Actually, you know what? It wouldn't be against the logic for it to come out on Classified for at least some of them. Because the Classified line is bouncing all around. We got your Raptor recently. I mean, I don't know. If you're a comic, if you collected the comics in the 80s and stuff, they're there. They've got several appearances at least, and so it wouldn't be against the. I mean, look, put it this way: if Diana became available, it's an instant buy.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Hope Hasbro's listening to this. And actually, can I just say, maybe the River Pirates as a set.
Yes.
I don't see Hasbro doing that, but I could see, what is it, Super 7?
Yeah.
I could see
doing that's true.
the Sexy River Pirates.
Yeah, I feel like Super 7's like, okay, we're going to take the chances that other guy doesn't do,
No, true. The sort of deep dives.
But you're only going to get 5 points of articulation, so that's too bad for Jarrod on Sexy River Girl.
And don't...
I pose him the way I want to pose him.
Yeah, but don't Super 7 do a lot of really deep cuts to the TV show, I believe.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah, so I could see them doing, because they did, in fact, I've got Bazooka in the winter gear.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've done a lot of...
Which is cool,
Yes, very much so, yeah. I think the Super 7's a little expensive for what it is.
Yes.
But... I admire them, that they're going all out and they're doing the stuff that Hasbro says, we're not worried about.
Are they on shelves in the States, or is it all you have to order it? Okay, because in Australia, you do not you can easily order all this stuff, on Amazon and stuff. But
they're on shelves, but they're like $20 for a 3 3/4 inch figure. Yeah. They're pretty like $17.99, $18.99,
right?
Plus taxes.
I see more of them than I do the classifieds for them usually.
Really? Okay. Because in Australia, you don't even see classifieds on shelves. They are available in the market, but they're not in stores, if you know what I mean. Which is interesting. But yet they, I was at a con yesterday and I was specifically looking for classifieds and I found one dealer who had a ton of them. And I made a deal to get stuff, and it was stuff that, is a little bit harder to get here.
Right.
But it's interesting. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I think they're mostly at Targets, if I'm not mistaken. That's usually where I see them at. But yeah, you can find them on the shelves here.
All right, good to know.
Charles, any other thoughts on this issue?
Super 7 stuff is like $32 Canadian right now. So you might want to just bump it up a little bit and buy a $40 classified figure. So it's a weird level of competition. 2 things I missed. The first one is that on page 19, if you look down in the corner, we were talking about her kind of doing some really interesting things with this. And for me, the bottom panel on page 19, he has the holster that's on the figure, but it's empty. So he's deliberately drawn the figure as it is in the art, but to fit the storyline, he's drawn the holster empty. And I think that's actually kind of a little cool little detail. And you also get to see, if you look at that same panel, Roadblock going, like, oh my God, this is going to go badly. And it's hilarious. It's little things you build into it that's there. The other one is they're once again clowning on my man horror show, right? I mean, either he's eating a whole turkey or he's getting thrown around with a pacifist. I mean, they just, they do him dirty every single time he's on there. And, I feel like he just gets the worst parts of the comedic break and then ends up, smashing a thing with his head. I'm still living. So, I mean, we know he's pretty good, but the comic itself, I didn't want to get into the Sexy River Pirates because I really felt like that was going to get covered in some level of depth.
Well, now that you bring it up,
Yeah.
Jarrod, I only heard about you from the Sexy River. Oh, sorry.
Let's go back to Charles.
But and it's, I don't know. There's a lot also of really interesting stuff in the background that until you kind of look at the digital version on the big screen, you're not actually going to see. All the wounded Joes in the background. Like and keeping their wounds, the appropriate bindings for their wounds correct from image to image to image. All this stuff is really, really detailed. And then when you get to the last panel, the sun is setting in the sky and it's this beautiful orange and purple sky, and the boats are sailing off into the background, these impossibly high boats. And it just it just ends incredibly coolly, and it ends with all of you get to go free because one of you has the courage of his convictions. And that was just like that's a really cool way to end up an issue.
Mm-hmm. And like someone else mentioned, they all got to go free, but the river pirates sacrificed the black box to the river gods, and you guys.
So here's the thing. Okay, so this is the guy who always points out the illogical things. They threw it into a river. Oh no, they're gone forever, because who could possibly go into a river to recover them? I mean, that's like they disappear entirely. Why did they not just jump into the water? Okay, granted, maybe they've got to shoot crocodiles or deal with dysentery or whatever comes out of that. They got a medic to deal with the dysentery. Why not go after them? It's not like they just stopped existing. They sailed off in the background. They're all there. Why not just go down and get them out of the water?
And I forgot to make a note of that. Yeah. That was my question. Or come back later on, and because they know the general area. And again, that black box looked a little heavy. I'm sure it did. Yeah, there is river currents, but I don't think it would have probably pushed that black box too far. They had the general area. They could have came back for it, I would think.
Sure.
You can see both sides of the river there. Like, it's not a massive amount of space.
Yeah, that's one of the flaws in the story. And I forgot to notate that when I was reading it, that why don't they come back? Well,
there could be a sequel at some point. They come back and the river pirates are still there, and kicks off. But, send Lifeline down. He's the expert apparently.
That's right.
And again, maybe
get it, Lifeline. Get your screwdriver out.
And maybe they do come back later on. It's a told story, but
yeah, unfortunately, all the sexy river pirates are like 70 years old.
Yeah, they're all aged up.
And so they're generic, geriatric, sexy river pirates, and maybe that turns out to be a bit different.
That sounds like a great comic, like Ninja Turtles, like geriatric, sexy river pirates.
I do like that they're one and done.
Ninja Turtles. Sorry, go ahead.
I do like that so far. Larry does these cold open one and dones. I always like that in a comic book because it kind of keeps it going and it changes it up a little bit. You can read a trade and you're getting a lot of different stories. I just feel like they pack so much more story back into comics in those days.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. And that's one thing we've complained about or commented on here. A lot of things, like a one and done story like this in a modern comic would take you 4 to 6 issues.
Which
to tell the same story.
Yeah.
So,
come on.
Yeah. I'm going to drop one more shout out since we were talking about good details and panels. And I got to give credit to Pat for this because he pointed it out on our show. How cool was it that Roadblock respected Wild Bill's Cav hat so much that he didn't leave it behind? Like he puts Wild Bill's Cav hat on and carries him out. And Pat noticed that when we went through it. I was like, that is so cool because a Cav pilot is loath to leave his hat behind. And it's so cool that Roadblock did that.
Very nice. Good catch, Pat. Even on the show, he's making good catches. Good job. And thank you, Jarrod, for relating that. But unless anyone else has any further thoughts on this, I guess this is where we're going to wrap it up. Brad, if people want to hear more from you or read some of your fantastic writing, where can they go?
Well, they can go to bradabraham.com for all that stuff. All the information about what I'm working on and where you can find my work is there. I've mentioned this already, but depending on when you listen to this, I am either launching or have already launched my Celluloid Heroes podcast in January, because what the world really, really needs is another aging Gen Xer launching a podcast where he talks about the movies of his youth. But mine's a little different, as I'm an aging Gen Xer who went from movie watcher to movie fan to movie maker. And this podcast will chronicle that journey through 50 key films of the Gen X era. So I hope everyone listening to this and participating on this podcast checks it out. You can follow it on Instagram at the Celluloid Heroes Pod. for updates, and I'll have show notes for each episode posted on my website, again, bradabraham.com.
And yeah, this should be, if as long as nothing comes up, this should be coming out in January. So it should be out the same month. So check out Brad's show. And Kevin, if people want to hear more from you, where can they go?
SarahWackSally.com. I don't know.
I subscribe there.
She has an OnlyFans.
You can find me at the Fandom Podcast Network, where we got a great channel for nerds. We got a little bit of everything, whether you're a Star Wars, Star Trek, movie nerd, Highlander fan, hair metal. We cover a lot of it. Make sure you check it out. You can find me on the socials at Spartan_Phoenix. We just joined Blue Sky as well with the Fandom Podcast Network, or SarahWackSally.com. Yes. And we got some fun podcasts coming out. We're doing a John Wick celebrating his 10th anniversary. We just did Terminator 1984 celebrating his 40th anniversary. We're doing a special on Deadpool and Wolverine and a bunch of other fun stuff. So make sure you check us out on the Fandom Podcast Network.
Very nice. And Jarrod, where can people, never mind. Where can people especially anything for G.I. Joe? Oh.
Well, if you want to hear us talk about all kinds of different stuff in the nerd corner, we are Longbox Crusade, and you can find that on any podcatcher or on YouTube. It's Longbox Crusade on X, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. So Longbox Crusade is where it's at. If you're interested in my art, it's www.theyardsaleartist.com. And I'm personally at Yard Sale Artist, X, Facebook, Instagram. I'll be around. I'll see you out there.
And Dave, if people want to hear more from you,
you can catch me on the streets. I'm always on the streets. But just Signal of Doom. We've got Instagram lockdown. We've got X lockdown. We've got Phil lockdown. Signal of Doom, weekly podcast coming out with me and Rich, satisfying all your pop culture needs with a special focus on Frank Sinatra and Bob Dylan, and obviously G.I. Joe and Punisher. But keep it rocking, guys, and thank you for having me on.
Always a pleasure to have you, man. And finally, our special guest, Classified. What you got going on, man? Anything you want to talk about? Or
well, by the time this comes out, chances are the Energon protocols will have dropped. And so cannot, as a partner to this particular one on this particular network, it is definitely worth checking out. We get to experience Renegade's Essence 20 system and have a really good adventure. And I think it's one of those ones that's really going to catch you. So I'm quite looking forward to being able to hear it and hear how odd my voice sounds on these things. Because frankly, I'm not, this podcasting. When everyone who comes on here is like, yeah, I've got 17 different things. I've got this on the ring. I have 36 different ones about these different movies. And I'm like, hi, I just showed up. And so I'm very glad to both be here and also to try and push people over to Energon protocols, because I think it's a really interesting story told really well. And I hope it's as interesting to listen to as it was to live.
Yes, no, Eric does a fantastic job on telling a good story and incorporating, all, again, I don't want to spoil anything. So again, I will say, incorporating the origins of the new Cobra and stuff that's more than meets the eye, along with other stuff that you may not expect to pop up in G.I. Joe. So it's definitely fun playing it. Hopefully, I say, by the time this comes out, hopefully episode 2 will be out this month also. But yeah, definitely fun times. And again, I'm at the Headcast Network. Again, headcast.headspeaks.com is my main website. All my shows are available on there. I've got my G.I. Joe show, which again is the main show, G.I. Joe, Real American Headcast. This show, and again, hopefully by the time this comes out, the Energon protocols will be on also. Head Speaks, where I talk about anything geeky. I'm looking kind of back at years 1980 right now, just randomly picking a year and looking at those. And I'm not sure what book I'm going to cover next, but there'll be some other comic book geeky stuff on there. And then also, it's been on hold. Hopefully I'll get it back up soon, is Starbright Project, where the wife and I, plus our friend, another friend from Australia, my other friend from Australia, Handy McQueenie, looks at the Quantum Leap TV show. Again, my daughter's been in band, so our Fridays and Saturdays have been busy doing band stuff. So hopefully we'll get things straightened out soon and get that back on the air. Plus, we got a couple other shows, Task Force X and the Starman Adventure Show. Both are ending in the next couple of months, more than likely, because I'm running at the end of those books. But definitely check it all out at Headcast Network. And I guess that's going to do it for this episode. I want to thank all of you guys for showing up. It's always a pleasure having you guys on, except for Jarrod. I mean, it's always a pleasure having you guys. No,
you keep sending me the links, man.
I'm a little stupid like that.
We love Jarrod. We love Brad. We love all of them.
Yes,
I love G.I. Joe. I don't know if you can tell.
Yes,
G.I. Joe.
Like I said, I wasn't going to pick up the compendium, but it was in stock trade for like $37. I'm like, how can I resist? So,
That's a good price. I think mine was around that, maybe 30, 35. When I pre-ordered it like 6 months ago.
Very nice.
I had no idea how big it was going to be. So
I saw it at the comic shop. I'm like, that's a little big. I don't need it. Oh, it's on. Oh,
who really needs G.I. Joe stuff? I mean, really? I mean, you're going to get it.
Look at Brad talked me into ordering the $100.
Yeah.
Art of G.I. Joe that I didn't realize was 3 feet by 3 feet, or how it's big ass box.
Aaron's got it over there.
I was like, where am I going to put this? Where am I going to put it?
There it is.
Damn you, Brad!
I lifted up.
It is.
Back problems, but I've got that, and I also, because I have an addiction, I also bought the Digipack.
Ah, nice.
That is cool.
And then, I think I gave props before, but I'll do it again. Jarrod
cool.
got me a video game cartridge of the first G.I. Joe movie right there.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I got to get these framed together. So there you
That's
go.
cool.
Megaforce.
Aaron, what is that Digipack, Aaron? Is that the cartoon or?
No, it's got creator interviews with various employees and contractors, including Kirk Bogosian, Vincent D'Oliva, which is the G.I. Joe brand manager, Ed Morale, which is branding and packaging executive, Ron Rudat, which anyone for G.I. Joe knows him, Mark Pennington, designer, Doug Hart, packaging illustrator.
So it's like DVD interviews or something, is it?
Yeah, it's interviews and information from them. Larry Hama's on here.
Cool.
But it's a follow-up to the Art of G.I. Joe. And I love the packaging.
Oh, I see. Right. It's related to that, is it? Okay. Cool.
Yeah. They've got the figures that correspond to the various creators.
Pretty cool.
That's cool.
So, it's a very nice.
Wow.
Yeah, the Art of G.I. Joe Omnibus. It is a weighty tome. And even when I got mine, I thought, oh, man, if I made a huge mistake, where the heck am I going to
I still haven't
this?
figured out where to put mine yet.
But I got to say, once I started going through it, when my wife and son are out, I clear the dining room table off and I lay it down and I open up and I start going through it on usually Saturday mornings because I'm having my coffee, and it is worth every single penny. And I paid full price for it. I paid like $175 for it with shipping, and it's on sale right now for like $100. So if you want to pay the freight, it's not cheap, but they are not going to be reprinting it. And if you like G.I. Joe, the toy line in particular, it has got beautiful reproductions of every piece of artwork ever associated with it. It's got full-size pictures of every action figure in its packaging, so it's pretty
It
fantastic.
even has
good.
Preliminary sketchworks and design.
And it's got artwork for stuff that was canceled. Like when they canceled the line, they were developing a Cobra submarine and a bunch of other things, and it's got artwork for those too.
Wow.
So
R. Carson Maxtus, I believe his name is.
Yeah.
Before we go, guys, I've got a question.
Yes,
in the 80s or 90s, did they ever release the Cobra mothership or not?
Not to my knowledge.
No.
I know
Super 7 just announced plans for releasing it because I saw a mock-up of it at the Super 7 store at downtown's San Diego last year because our finest G.I. Joe group did some volunteer work showing up in costume for them. And they hooked us up with some free swag, which was nice. But they had a mock-up of that Cobra starship inside the store. And then we were wondering, is that going to be released? And they didn't say anything until recently. They said that they were going to be releasing it.
Okay. All right. But you've answered my question. But in the original, it didn't get released.
No.
Okay. All right. Gotcha.
And it looks like,
thank you for answering my question.
Looking at their site real quick, it's out of stock. Okay. So I guess they were doing like a fundraiser for it, and the funding goal was not met.
Yes, there was a failed fundraiser a couple of years ago. Yes, that was what led my question off. Okay, all right, cool.
So I guess it wasn't back. So they're probably not going to do it at least for now,
right?
Because the funding wasn't met. But they were.
I think it had a very ambitious. I think it was quite a hefty price tag.
It was like $495.
Yeah, that's pretty high US.
It'd be interesting though if they did one for Classified that you could just live in. Because
I was going to say,
it's so utterly massive.
My dog could sleep in it, like he'd enjoy it. He'd be loving it in there.
It's a junkyard to sleep in. Yeah, nice to keep in the backyard, and be Junkyard's new doghouse. Definitely.
Yeah, why not?
So unfortunately, it looks like they're not going to get that out. Yeah, they never did do. They didn't even do like a miniature or anything. That's which is kind of
Okay, right.
A lot of fans want, but there's not we want that we don't get. So, but I'm not going to get that. But well, again, I want to thank you guys very much for joining us. Be back next month when we're looking at on the Rain Show. We should be looking at G.I. Joe issue 60, and we'll be looking at Special Missions number 5, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the dogfight episode that or issue that I know Jarrod covered here a couple years ago. I covered it on one of his Christmas shows.
Yes, you did.
Years ago. So definitely join us for that. Until next month, remember, knowing is half the battle.
Yo, Joe!
Yo, Joe!
Yo, Joe.